Hey, gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I've just arrived in Thailand, so just want to get a quick cap off on what's happening throughout our regions. Might put you on the spot, Uday, and if you could cover off on South Asia first, that'd be great.
Sure, Paul, thanks. So in South Asia, it's been relatively quiet. In Bangladesh, 7 people were killed and several were injured in election-related violence. Yesterday, there were union council elections. The violence occurred across the country, and we've been monitoring this for the past few weeks, and we've been seeing this happening. So it's more of the same. Meanwhile, in India, operations at Chennai Airport were suspended yesterday for 7 hours due to rains and strong winds in the city and across the state, and it's also disrupted other travel. But the weather's clearing up, so things are getting back to normal. And just jumping quickly over to Pakistan, the Tehreek-e-Labbaik's Pakistan's leader Saad Rizvi's name has been taken off the anti-terror list, so he's likely to be a free man soon. Bhargav, do you have any comments on that?
Well, Uday, I do not know where to start. Should I start with Islamists having more power than they actually should, or should we start with the government bending over backwards to please the Islamists? But one thing is very clear: the military, the Pakistani military, is a very shrewd actor. They may have to concede a few inches of power, but they make sure their challenges are stifled before they become a bigger issue. Otherwise, they would be facing a prolonged and entrenched warfare like we saw in Zarbe Azb earlier this decade. Uday, would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it would be quite interesting to see how the next elections come up because TLP will be a political party and, will they get some military backing in that? I think that would be an interesting dynamic.
That is true. That's something we can watch out for. Before we get carried away with Pakistan and how interesting the country is, I'll pass it on to Basil.
Sure.
Thank you, Bhargav. The Middle East and Africa region has been quite volatile. First, in Sudan, we continue our updates with Sudan. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, which is the leader of the military coup, announced a new 14-member Sovereign Council yesterday. The Sovereign Council included military and civilian leaders. However, he didn't include any civilian leaders from the political party of Prime Minister Abdullah al-Hamdouk. At the same time, thousands of people demonstrated against the new Sovereign Council because they demanded a civilian-led government. Those demonstrations included the Khartoum Neighborhood Resistance Committees. At the same time, it included the Sudanese Professionals Association. The protests were held in Berry and Omdurman, across Khartoum and across all the country. Protesters used barricades and used tires to block roads, especially main roads and bridges, which caused minor supply chain issues. At the same time, the High Court in Khartoum issued second instructions to telecoms firms like Zain, MTN, and Sudatel in order to restore all the connections in the country because internet connections and signal connections were partially suspended since the October 25 military coup by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The second development would be in Somalia. Suicide bombing attacks resumed in Somalia, especially in the capital, Mogadishu. At least 3 people were killed and several others were injured when a suicide bomber detonated himself in a car close to Villa Baidoa, which is close to a Somali military headquarters. However, it did not target the military itself. It targeted an African Union mission in Somali members. However, the convoy was targeted, but no casualties were reported. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Basil. So in Europe, the issues seem to surround the labor issues, especially in Greece, as well as some of the issues propping up include the Green Pass being issued in Italy. People are not very happy with the system of Green Passes, mainly to tackle the COVID-19 issue as well as the vaccination issue. However, the major issue which is emerging right now is the anti-European Union movement in Eastern Europe. Of course, the right-wingers have been very notorious, especially in Poland, which is deeply conservative. However, they do not seem to be taking it so easy of recent, especially there was a major protest held by the right wingers on the annual day or annual Independence Day. They marched through Warsaw, burning German flags and chanting anti-European Union slogans. The protest comes amid the escalation in the emerging migrant crisis along the Belarusian border. Belarusian president, who is popularly known to be a dictator who rules with an iron fist and with the backing of Putin, has threatened to cut off gas supply to the country, that is to Poland. However, the scuffle between Poland and Belarus is a bit troubling, especially for the rest of the Europe, because Poland is known to be the gateway to Europe coming from the east. Now, if we move on to Spain, the Goods Department of the National Road Transport Committee announced a transportation strike ahead of Christmas. Now, this is extremely important for manufacturing sector before Christmas, because Christmas is the high season for sales and clearing stock and whatnot. And any such declaration of strike is going to affect them very badly. So the businesses need to ensure they have contingency plans in place across Europe, not just Spain, because Spain hosts a lot of industrial facilities, which applies to the rest of Europe. Paul, with that, may I ask you to pitch in with any thoughts or cover off on Southeast Asia?
Yeah, sure, Bhargav. Look, I'm just going to move straight into Southeast Asia. Look, fundamentally, I arrived in Thailand yesterday. Thailand's got kind of quasi restrictions. Firstly, the most efficient process to get into the country you could imagine. Arrived at the airport, it's all very organised. Documentation check through immigration. Prior to immigration, there was a check for basically ensuring that everyone had their COVID documentation. And then we quickly into immigration, into a vehicle dedicated towards your hotel. The hotel destination is a one-night test and go. And then from that test and go, we basically bypassed via a hospital, and the hospital did a PCR test. From the time you hit the tarmac, about 40 kilometres outside Bangkok, to the time I was in inner city, 95 minutes. I've gone down to the provinces of Sakhon, through to Petchbury, and down to Pranbury, and everybody wears masks, but pretty much everything's open. I wouldn't want to draw attention to the fact that the bars aren't opening until mid-January, but I'm sure that all the coffee cups I had a substance inside it that did resemble beer. Fundamentally, though, when we get to Thailand, there is another transportational strike planned for the 16th of November. In Indonesia, dozens of protesters gathered at the Jakarta City Hall yesterday as well. The demonstrators are calling for transparency regarding the budget for the Formula E racing event. And of course, asking Indonesia government and officials not to be corrupt is quite a big ask. It's like Australians to give up cricket and beer. I guess also of note in Southeast Asia is in Malaysia. I think the reopening to international visitors, they say by January 1, but I'm figuring it's probably going to be on that timeline. In Myanmar, about 1,300 soldiers were killed and 460 odd were injured in clashes with armed resistance groups between the period 7 October to November 6. So if you have assets in Myanmar and people and money you want to consider on a plan to get that out, and contact us, because we're going through the same processes for our own company at the moment. What else of note? In Vietnam, there's in the environmental department in Quang Tri province has warned of an oil spill, which is from a Hong Kong vessel stranded in the province. That's about all I've got for Southeast Asia, other than a whole heap of COVID updates. People can subscribe or become a member if they wish. All right, Bhargav, back to you for closeout.
Thank you, Paul. With that, we'll call it a day.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Thank you.